Hello. This video is for two reasons. One, it is in case you don't want to run Docker locally. You want to run Docker on a server remotely, whether it's for production, some other server use, or simply because you can't run Docker locally for licensing, performance, resources. You're not local admin. It could be all sorts of reasons. So this is about Docker Engine for Linux servers. The reason I say it's engine and servers are key components we'll get into throughout this video. This video is going to focus on getting the most up-to-date Docker installed from the correct location, which is different than your default Linux package managers. We will then make sure that the CLI is installed wherever you're going to operate it from. So not SSHing into the server the entire time. We're actually going to set it up so we can control it remotely, which is the best way to run a Docker engine on a Linux server. And a little disclaimer, if you haven't watched the previous video, which is about Docker Desktop for Linux desktops, this is not that. This is before we had Docker Desktop, we had just the Docker Engine. Every Docker Desktop has Docker Engine in it. It manages it for you. But Docker Engine, it's a single binary called Docker-D or the Docker daemon. And that can operate on any Linux server. As long as you have a Linux kernel, you can run that. The same thing, you can run it on a Windows server, the dockerd.exe that could actually run as a service on a Windows server to run Windows containers, but we're not going to talk about that in this video. So the Docker Desktop, that's for running on your local system. That's really just for local use of Docker. But this is the Docker Engine, which can run on any Linux system, whether it's local or remote, whether it's a VM or a physical server, it's a Raspberry Pi, whatever it is, if it's running a Linux kernel, it's in the list. And Docker has a compatible list of tested, supported builds that they know work. It's not every Linux distribution out there. It doesn't include BSD, which is not technically Linux. And it's really just focused on the big ones, the CentOS, the Red Hat, the Ubuntu, the Debians, those kind of things. And there's various architectures that it will support. So as a reference in this video, you'll see the link to this page, which is showing you the list of currently supported Linux distributions for Engine. I am, of course, going to use Docker on Ubuntu, my favorite server Linux distribution, and I'm going to step you through it. I'm going to gloss over the details because really you're just going to read this or run the script, which we'll talk about next. Now, yes, I am giving you links as the resources to this video for all the documentation around all the ways to install it on Linux variants, distributions like Ubuntu, Fedora, and all the other ones. But really, the easiest way to do this most of the time is just running a script. If you type in your browser git.docker.com, that will give you a shell script that you can look at, you can download, you can run automatically with curl. It's meant to basically get you the right settings and uninstall the old things, install the new things, make sure you're getting the right sources and all that stuff all in one go, which is how I've always installed Docker ever since I learned about it way back at the beginning of the project. So maybe for learning, maybe the first time you install Docker on a Linux server, you go follow the documentation that goes through step by step with your package manager. Maybe it's apt, maybe it's yum, maybe it's APK, just depending on what you're doing on your Linux distro. But I'm going to use this script, which is easier. It's basically curling down the script into a file and then running that file with a shell. And this is exactly what that script, if you went to the last slide, it would tell you to copy and paste that and copy it down and then run it. So we're doing that, and it will figure out which distribution I'm on, which version of that distribution, whether they're supported. It will connect, in this case, apt to the package manager with the key to make sure you get the right repository for your install. And then that command runs for a few minutes depending on how fast your server is, and then you end up here, back at your shell prompt with the Docker command line, the Docker engine or daemon, and a few other utilities. Usually it comes with some plugins like BuildKit for building images, Compose for running that. We'll get into all that through the course, so just realize that there's maybe 4 or 5 binaries floating around your system. Now, like all the other ways you can install Docker, do a docker space version command, type that command in your shell, and you should get back, at least, the command line client and the server version. When you get back that server version, it means you're able to talk to the server API on that server. If you're on the shell of the server, then it's technically talking to localhost using a socket. I just want to remind you that all that you just did there is open source. The Docker engine, the Docker command line, all of the plugins there, those are all fully open source, Apache licensed. Docker Desktop, however, from the previous videos, is including all of this stuff as well as closed source or licensed software from Docker. Docker Desktop is way more of a superset of a bunch of different things. Docker Engine here that we're installing is just the bare minimum. It's the daemon you need to run a container in Docker. And as a reminder, like I've done in previous videos, if you use the Docker login command, because you only have command line access here, if you type in Docker space login, you can log in with your Docker ID, and that will get you more pulls. If you remember, pulls are the things from the first few videos in this course that contain the software. You pull the image and then you run it as a container. And you do that a certain number of times, and Docker may eventually complain and say, hey, look, you've exceeded, and I think the current number is like 106 hours. And it says you've exceeded the number of pulls. Well, if you're behind a corporate firewall and everyone in your company is all using Docker and they're all behind a single IP address, that limit can be hit pretty quick. But if you simply log in, Docker gives you at least double the amount of pulls for nothing, for free, with a free account. If you pay for Docker, which you don't have to with this course, but if you wanted to pay for a Docker subscription, you would get, I think, unlimited pulls as long as you logged in with that account. But let's move on to controlling this daemon locally. Now, what's going to happen here is whatever system you're going to use, let's say this is a server setup, or it could just be that you don't want to run Docker on your local machine. Maybe you're not allowed to, maybe you can't, maybe you don't have enough resources, maybe you're not root on your local machine, but you do have the ability to run Docker on this remote machine. Well, you don't have to sit in the shell on that remote machine and type all your commands there and do all your source code work there or clone the repo for this course. You can do nothing there. You can ignore that. You can actually install Docker there, and we're going to talk to it remotely. Now, let's go back for a second. Years ago, before this SSH tunnel feature existed, somewhere around 2018, then before that, you would have had to either SSH into the server and do everything on the server, and that kind of sometimes sucks because then you got to copy your stuff over and it just isn't great. You have everything else locally. You have your code editor, maybe you're using Visual Studio Code, and you have your source code for this class, and you've got stuff here, right? So you ideally want to do all that work on your local machine. Docker solved that. When it first came out back in 2013, the only way we could do that was through a TCP port, which doesn't have built-in authentication and by default doesn't provide encryption for the connection. So it was generally considered a bad way to connect to Docker. It was something you only wanted to do on safe networks, and especially because it wasn't authenticated, it could technically allow you remote root access to a server if you just simply connected from anywhere that had access to that port. That's a bad idea. So Docker then added this new feature built in that we can simply do a transparent SSH connection as long as you can SSH to that server and have the authentication or a certificate preferably to SSH into that server. You can do it. And you don't need to jump through hoops or expose any additional ports. So that's what we're going to do. So this step here is to just simply get the Docker command line client on whatever system you're going to be working from. And it can be on Windows, Mac, Linux, Raspberry Pis, whatever. Just get the command line client. If you're on Mac, surprisingly, the Brew installer, which if you don't know about Brew, you're missing the best installer for Mac. And Brew install Docker doesn't really install the full Docker engine or Docker desktop. It only installs the client because there is no Docker engine for Mac. Mac kernels don't support containers. So the install, surprisingly, only installs the command line, which in this case is what we want. If your local machine was Linux, you could use the Linux install package from Docker's documentation. And then once you have that package set up as a repository, you can then apt install the Docker CE CLI package from that repository. And lastly, if you're on Windows, you might have heard of Chocolatey. That's one of the package managers for Windows nowadays. And you could do a Chocolatey install to install just the command line client. But Docker also has all this explained in their documentation, where they tell you how you can get the client libraries for your operating system and just the client library. Okay, the moment of truth. You've installed the Docker engine on a Linux server. Regardless of what you're going to use it for, whether it's just for practice or for real production, you got Docker on the server. You've now got the client installed on your local machine. I should remind you that all those things I just told you about installing the client, if you already have Docker Desktop installed, you don't need to do that. Docker Desktop comes with the client, but we can tell the client where to point, where to talk to the server engine, and that's what we're going to do now. So imagine I can SSH into a server with something like this command up here, SSH root at an IP address or a host name. And let's say I have an SSH certificate. So all of this does assume you understand the basics of SSH, that you know how to get a certificate on a server so that you can log in remotely. There's tons of tutorials out there on that. And that knowledge is assumed. Again, basic Linux knowledge is assumed before you get involved with Docker. So assuming that we can do that, if I have that access, then all I would need to do is create an environment variable. The docker_host environment variable tells the Docker command line which server to talk to. By default, if you just install Docker on something and start using the command line, it assumes the local socket or the local host. And so it doesn't even have this environment variable. And by default, if it's blank, this environment variable, even though Docker tries to look it up and it doesn't find one, it will say, okay, you must assume that I need to talk to the local host. And it will do that just fine. But if we change this by adding an export, Docker host equals SSH:// just like you would use an HTTPS URL. So if we replace that with SSH:// username at hostname, then I can jump in with Docker by just typing regular Docker commands. So notice I type a Docker version here, but I don't have Docker running on my local machine. I just have the Docker client, and it's already SSHing right over the internet to this remote cloud instance I just set up moments ago, and it returns the server version as well as the client version. If you were to start poking around, you would actually see that I'm on Darwin, which is Mac OS for my client, and if we scroll down, the server would show Linux because that's where the server is running the engine. And that's it. That's all you need to do. If you want to unset that docker_host environment variable, then your Docker command line would revert back to your local machine, assuming that you had the engine running locally. And you can toggle back and forth. In fact, you could have a bunch of different servers and just change the environment variable in each shell you're using to tell it which server to talk to. There's a Docker context command that can also do this. We won't talk about that yet. That's more advanced for later in the course. But there's technically a built-in command called Docker context that allows you to save these settings and manage a list of different engines that you want to talk to. But this one is great to start with. And the last step here is to clone your repository for this course locally. The one that's mentioned a few lectures back in the written lectures, where there's the course repo that you download, you want to put that on your local machine along with your code editor and everything else and the Docker client. The only thing that's going to be on the server is the engine we installed, and we're not going to need to SSH into it constantly because all the Docker commands we run locally will just execute against that remote server. That remote server, by the way, just remember, whenever I'm typing localhost in my browser to test things in Docker, like maybe a website or something that we're running in Docker, you're not going to type localhost. You're going to type the server host name or IP address that you installed Docker on. That's the machine that's running the engine, running your containers, and that you will need to type in your browser, or if you're running any other local commands like curl or ping, you're going to need to do those to that server IP. And that's it. You now have an engine running on a Linux server somewhere in the world. You're running on your local system with your code and your repo and everything else, and you're ready to get started.